Now I'm going to talk about control joints in a CMU wall. This is a typical control joint detail that we have on our projects. Oftentimes, it's warm outside, it's summer, this is rubber. Sometimes it's PVC, but when it's rubber and it's warm, it wants to be floppy and difficult to deal with. It starts in a 4-foot section, so you always let it lay in one direction, start on the other, and then flop it over. The biggest thing that we want to do is we want to keep this free of debris, and we want to keep it straight as an arrow. So whenever you're striking your work, you're going to cut your trowel through. Occasionally, you may want to check it for plumb. If your wall is running pretty level and you're a pretty decent mason, you can pretty much set your first one right in line with the one below it and then butt the next one to it, and you're going to keep it straight. This is actually a project that one of our apprentices was working on in class this week, and I think he did a pretty good job on it. Another thing that is a concern with control joints, oftentimes we have grout right here. And if we don't have grout, we might have foam, but almost always there's grout. And if we're pumping a wet mix or we're dumping a very fine aggregate wet slurry in the grout, it can ooze out in here and get into the control joint. So what you're going to want to do is, before you start laying block, you don't want to put a lot of mortar here. You just want to put a little dab of mortar right there. Two things you don't want to do. One, you don't want mortar in the control joint. You can cut it out with your trowel, but two, you don't want mortar down the cell where you're supposed to have your grout, your 4,000 PSI grout. So this might even be a bit much. You know, just a dab. It doesn't need to perfectly seal it, but just closing the gap a little bit will keep the grout from oozing into the control joint. In a real life scenario, I would have a line to go to. But what you're going to want to do when you set this block is you're just going to want to be putting your eye right here to make sure that it's lined up with the one beneath it. And then you're going to lay it to the line. And once you have it good to the line, then you'll lay the next one right up against it. I always hold my hand on the front or back. It's very difficult to hold it like you would normally at the control joint location. Now, you can see there's a little bit of mortar in there, and sometimes you can even do that as you go instead of waiting till you strike. Keep it clean. Clean and free, nice and straight. That's how you do a control joint.